Today we're going to talk about plugins, or adding processing functionality to your DAW, Digital Audio Workstation, which in this case would be Twisted Wave. So what is a plugin? A plugin in computing is a software component that adds a specific feature to an existing software application, in this case Twisted Wave. When an application supports plugins, it enables customization. A DAW is like a tape machine. It'll record, rewind, fast forward, and erase, but to further sculpt audio, we need to add that functionality in the form of a plugin to the system. Plugins can be free or paid for, and the format is important when considering what to install and use. A DAW will support specific plugin formats, so make sure you know which ones it does. In the case of Twisted Wave, we can install AU or VST plugins. So basic plugin formats are AU or Audio Unit, which is Mac only. VST, Virtual Studio Technology, which is the most open, works on Mac, PC, and Linux. And Advanced Audio Exchange or AAX, which works on Mac and PC, but is Pro Tools only. So some common plugin types. First we have equalization or EQ. This enables us to shape the frequency bands of our audio. Think of shaping maybe treble or bass or mid-range. A compressor or limiter allows us to tame dynamics, to work on some of the higher peaks in volume or the lower levels in volume, and to shape those to make our recording a little more consistent. Reverb allows us to add space to our recording. Maybe we want it to sound like we're coming from a bigger room, a church, a hall, or even a cave, so we can add reverb to that. Delay delays some of the audio signal and mixes it back in, giving us delay. Chorus, echoes, or flanging. A gate or expander works on a threshold and reduction of sound below a threshold, usually to reduce or decrease the noise floor. Noise reduction plugins allow you to clean out your audio for things like hum and hiss, sometimes buzz, some noise background artifacts that maybe you want to get rid of. Harmonic and pitch plugins allow us to change the pitch up or down for audio or change the formats or the fundamental tone of the audio itself. And then the normalize plugin, which you probably use a lot in auditions, allows us to globally increase or decrease the volume of an overall track. So with that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at some audio in Twisted Wave. I did a quick recording of a car spot here. I'm going to bring that into Twisted Wave so we can listen to it. You can see that this is a pretty standard recording and that we have some volume spikes here. Those aren't bad. This is a pretty nice recording in terms of volume. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at some plugin types. Apple gives you some plugins out of the gate. They come with your operating system for programs like GarageBand. If you have Final Cut, they're there for that. And because Twisted Wave works with the AU format or Audio Unit format, it can pull in those plugins that exist already in your operating system. And the way that we get to those is by going up to Effects, and by going to Audio Units and VST. And if you have no VST plugins installed in your system, you might not see VST here yet. But in any case, we're looking for Audio Unit plugins. I have many plugins installed in my system, and so you'll see many vendors here. But we're interested with Apple. So let's take a look at our most basic EQ plugin, which is a graphic EQ. We can look at this EQ in a couple different ways, 10 band or 31 band. We'll just go with the 10 band for now. And when you look at an equalizer, there are two basic things that you're looking at. One is a graph of frequencies, usually at the top or at the bottom. And this tells us in the graph where the frequencies we're targeting are. So as a human being, when you are born, you can hear from 20 waves or 20 hertz per second all the way up to 20,000 hertz per second. 20 to 20K sometimes you'll hear it be called. This graphic EQ works from 32 hertz here, all the way up to 16 kilohertz, or 16,000 waves up top. On the left, you usually have an indication of volume, and in the middle, you have some type of slider. So in a graphic equalizer, this has been predetermined that these knobs will be at 32, 64, 128, so forth and so forth. And these knobs allow us to, or buttons allow us to accentuate or boost volume in certain frequencies. So you can see I've gone up by 12 decibels in the 64 hertz range, or I can attenuate or cut certain frequencies as well. So to take a listen to that, let's go ahead and put our cursor somewhere out here. We'll hit play. It's got all the hottest SUVs you've been looking for. This week only, enjoy a test drive and the opportunity to drive one of these powerful vehicles off the lot for half the price. Yes, half the price. Now's the time to get yourself to Valley View by car, on foot, or even by air to take advantage of this outrageous sale. You'd better get here quickly because this promotion. So as you can hear there, we're shaping some of the frequencies in the audio. So EQ generally is a corrective function. Often we will want to kind of recorrect what's coming out of our microphone, or maybe the room isn't as pretty as we want it to be, and we need to sort of shape some of our audio as it's gone in by reducing some bass or treble, or working on specific bands. Of course, in a 10 band, you're fixed at the number of bands you have at 10, and so the granularity isn't that big, but if you switch over to 31 bands, you'll obviously have a lot more. The other type of equalization that you have is a parametric EQ. So we can take a look at a parametric EQ here. Parametric EQ allows us to single out a certain frequency and to dial that frequency up or down. Now, you might say this is like a graphic EQ, except the frequency has been set in a graphic EQ, and where a parametric converses is that it allows you to select any frequency and then boost or cut that frequency. So I can pick a specific frequency and I can boost, and you'll see that there's a bell here, which is governed by the Q value. If I click on that, you can see there, and I can actually change that. I can change that to maybe 5. And you'll see the bell gets fatter, which means that it is accentuating or boosting more of the frequencies. And I can go a little bit thinner as well. So I can bring this back to 10 and hit enter. I can also cut frequencies in certain bands. And you can see that this value over here, gain, is how much I'm cutting or boosting, and the frequency number is the number I've selected. So it's fairly common for us to select a frequency in the voice range of about 3,000 to 3,500 and boost that up just a little bit for clarity. So I will flatten this out, and then we will listen to it for just a second. It's got all the hottest SUVs you've been looking for. This week only, enjoy a test drive and the opportunity to drive one of these powerful vehicles off the lot for half the price. Yes, half the price. Now's the time to get yourself to Valley View by car, on foot, or even by air to take advantage of this outrageous sale. You'd better get here quickly because this promotion is only going on for 24 hours. You can see I'm shaping some of the frequencies there. Sometimes I want to take out some excessive bass, and so I'll choose somewhere around 100 to 120 hertz and then take out something like this, reducing it about 6-7 dB. It's got all the hottest SUVs you've been looking. So the recording still sounds pretty good, but there is some hum in the recording that has come from my recording setup here that I might want to take out. And to do that, usually what I will use is not a parametric EQ or a graphic EQ, but a single pass or single band high pass filter. And Apple provides you with one of those. So I will go to Effects and Audio Units, and I will go to Apple, and I will go to High Pass. This is a single band frequency, but you can choose the frequency that you want, and you can roll off, which is what we call this here, the frequencies below this point. So you can choose a frequency and you can choose your resonance, which is how steep this is. So it's very common after you have recorded some audio to roll off the very, very low frequency in the audio that you're not really going to hear. And the way to choose this is actually to bring this all the way down to the bottom, hit play, and start to pull it up until you can see or hear it affecting your audio, and then to dial it back just a bit. So I will go ahead and do that with you listening. Price. Now's the time to get yourself to Valley View by car, on foot, or even by air to take advantage of this outrageous sale. You'd better get here quickly because this promotion sounds pretty good there. So if you look at some of the squiggly lines between my words here in the recording, this indicates that there's some hum or bass in the recording that I don't want. And when I apply and close this high pass filter, you'll see that these will flatten out just a bit. And there they are. So this is a common thing for you to do after you're done recording, specifically for auditions. You might do this first after you record. Then we might want to get into a compressor. So notice again the spikes of the audio that are throughout the recording. This is fairly common. I'm a fairly dynamic reader. And to tame some of these dynamics, we can use a compressor. So I'm going to go up to Effects, and I'm going to go to Audio Units, and I will go to Apple and Dynamics Processor, which is another name for a compressor. So a compressor graph is a little different than an EQ. We have decibels over here in a graph in negative numbers. This is volume. And we have range up top. So what this graph basically says is as volume approaches this dot here, start to push down on the volume as indicated by this curve up above. And we can change the curve here. So I can push down very hard, and I can push down softer and softer. Obviously, softer and softer sounds a little bit better. It's a little more transparent, but sometimes you need to slam the volume as it approaches or goes over this dot here. In the case of maybe radio broadcasting, you might want to set a limiter or a compressor at a level like that. So let's go ahead and see how this works. When I hit play, this red indicator here will start to bounce up, which indicates the volume of my audio. And as it approaches and goes over this dot, which I can change, of course, along this slider, it will start to push down the volume as for everything that moves above this dot here, the threshold as we call it. So I'm going to hit play. Half the price. Yes, half the price. Now's the time to get yourself to Valley View, by car, on foot. Now, one important thing that's kind of cool about this processor, as the triangle here goes red as it approaches over, so you can kind of see how much is peeking over. Again, let's set our cursor back here, and let's go ahead and hit play, and you'll see and listen as I'm starting to compress more and more of this audio. Automotive's got all the hottest SUVs you've been looking for. This week only enjoy a test drive and the opportunity to drive one of these powerful vehicles off the lot for half the price. Yes, half the price. You can probably hear that pumping there as the volume's trying to ramp above and come back down below. Or even buy air to take advantage of this outrageous sale. You'd better get here quickly, because this promotion is... Now, good compression means that we will slightly reduce the peaks in our audio, but we will not audibly affect the rest of the recording. That pumping that you just heard is an artifact of heavy compression and is usually unwanted, and usually tells people that you are inexperienced with your compressor. So when we compress audio, what we usually want to do is just barely compress some of the top peaks. So if I go up to my twisted wave and I hit loop, I can highlight one of these spikes here. I can just play that over and over again, and we'll kind of gauge for that, just so that spike is leveled out. Valley, 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 valley. Just barely covering that, and we'll check the spike down here as well. And the automobile, and the automobile, and the automobile, and there we go. Okay, so when I am done, I can apply and close and watch these two spikes as I do. Whoop, actually, I just process that one, so I'm going to go back to Effect and Apple and Dynamics Processor, and we will apply and close everything. You can see I've reduced them just a little bit. Not by much, we could go a little harder. So what I like to do when I'm looking through plugins is actually check some of the presets, and there are some really great presets that are part of some of these processors, specifically the Dynamics one. If we go into presets here, you'll see that there's some factory presets that have been chosen for you. I usually use fast and smooth, which means it's a pretty hard compression, but with a smooth knee, which means that curve at the top is pretty smooth. And at times I will also use a light compression. So let's set this for light. Now, this doesn't listen to any of my audio, it just sort of sets these parameters. We can hit apply and close and watch the audio here. You can see it's reduced the overall volume of the track and also taken down some of these spikes. I'm going to undo this. I'm going to go back to Effects, and we will choose Dynamics. And this time we'll actually choose the Fast and Smooth. You can see it's really affected those spikes. Now you might say, well, we use a compressor to increase the overall volume of a track or to add some punch, and that is true, but the actual act of compressing audio means it reduces the overall volume of the track. It takes down some of the spikes and reduces the peaks of everything, bringing them closer to the noise floor or to the average lower volume. So how do we get it back up to normal? Well, one way to do it would be to normalize the audio back up. That's very common, and that's what I usually do. Or in the effects processor, I'm going to undo this back to normal. If we go back to audio units and the dynamics processor and choose the preset fast and smooth, down here in details, we can make up the gain that we lose through the gain reduction here. And so I will make up maybe, say about 3 decibels. So there, it's almost stayed the same, but we've reduced some of the peaks. New Automotive's got all the hottest SUVs you've been looking for. This week only enjoy a test drive and the opportunity to drive one. Cool, so that is a compressor. Check with some of the presets, some of them are pretty good. Listen for pumping. If you hear pumping, I would reduce the compression. One way to do that really quick is to go to audio units, back in the same plugin processor, the dynamics, would be to choose the preset that you want, like fast and smooth, but to change the threshold and move it up just a tiny bit. So if it's pumping because it's hitting too hard, you might want to move it up just a bit. Cool. So the next thing we can take a look at is reverb. And reverb actually only works on stereo channels. So we need to convert this to stereo. I can't convert a mono file to true stereo because there wasn't a second microphone, but we can convert it to what we call 2.0 mono. So I can go up to File, or Edit actually, and convert to stereo, convert this to 2 tracks, and then I can go up to Effects and I can go to Apple and Matrix Reverb. So reverb is about adding space to the entire recording. And the presets that we have here are small room, medium room, and large room, which are very common, and then a couple other presets here. Let's go ahead and choose medium room, just as a preset here. The things that really govern the quality of the reverb or the sound that you're adding are the dry-wet mix, which means when you are 100% wet, you are 100% reverb, and as you go back to dry, you become 100% original signal. And then the size of the room itself. And then you can also add some pre-delay, which means that some of the reverb sound will happen before the audio even starts. And this adds an indication of distance to walls. So let's first take a listen to this. I will hit play.
Are you ready for this? Valley View Automotive.
Okay, so that's a medium reverb. Usually when we work with reverbs, we don't actually go 100% wet, at least in this scenario in Twisted Wave. So usually what we would do was we would bring the dry-wet mix down and bring it up until we can hear just a slight amount of reverb.
Are you ready for this? Valley View Automotive's got all the hottest SUVs you've been looking for. This week only, enjoy a test drive and the opportunity to drive one of these.
There you go, it's pretty nice. And then we can choose small or large, how big the room is inside the medium preset. So let's go ahead and bring this back up to 100% just to show you this.
Are you ready for this? Valley View Automotive's got all the
There's a bit of
hottest
distance
SUVs
here.
you've been looking for. This week only, enjoy a test drive and the opportunity to drive one of these powerful vehicles off the lot for half the price. Yes, half the price. Now's the time to get yourself to Valley View by car, on foot, or even by air to take advantage of this outrageous sale. You'd better get here quickly because this promotion...
There you go. So you can add reverb to your recording if you'd like. It's not very common for you to add reverb to auditions. It's actually not wanted because you want to hear the nice, clean, dry signal. But if you're making a demo or you need to add some effects to some voiceover as requested, you can do that there. So let's go back up to effects here and let's take a look at some other ones. So we have a delay that we can go through. And we can choose to move back to default. The delay is governed by the first spike here at 1, and as we move it left or right, we can increase or decrease delay. And again, we have that dry-wet mix here. Let me hit play.
These powerful vehicles off the lot for half the price. For half the price. Yes, half the price. Now's the time to get yourself to Valley View by car, on foot, or even by air to take advantage of this outrageous sale. You'd better get here quickly because this promotion is only going on for 24 hours. And the automobiles are leaving the lot fast.
So that's delay. Pretty self-explanatory. And then we can check out distortion, which adds just a tiny bit of distortion to your sound.
These powerful vehicles off the lot for half the price. Yes, half the price. Now's the time to get yourself to Valley View by car, on foot, or even...
If you need to add some noise to something, maybe a bad radio or a bad walkie-talkie sound, you can do that there in distortion. You can play with some of that stuff. We've gone through most of the other ones here. The only one that I would go through last would be your pitch, which allows you to...
These powerful vehicles off the lot for half the price. Yes, half the price.
Now's the time to get yourself to Valley View on foot,
or even by air to take advantage of
this outrageous sale.
You better get here quickly because this promotion is
your
only
dry
going
wet
on for 24 hours. And the automobiles are leaving the lot faster than you can say four-wheel drive. Valley View Automotive, SUVs you can depend on.
So there's a pitch shift, which is kind of fun sometimes. So that rounds out all of the plugins. There are a few more in there that you can play with. You can also go and download free plugins from different websites. And again, Twisted Wave works with the AU and the VST format, so you can download both of those and add them to Twisted Wave. you'll want to follow the installation instructions from the manufacturer on how to get them into your system. And in further videos, I'm going to be installing and using some other plugins from some manufacturers that I like, and we will go through the full installation in those videos so you can actually see how to do that there. So keep an eye on some future stuff. Thanks for watching.